What exactly is that supposed to do, kid? Vaporize me.
You'll find out.
You actually think anyone will believe this?
Cold fluorescence hummed above the police lobby, bleaching the air into something sharp and metallic. Maya Reeves stood still, backpack pressed to her spine, fingers cold around the cracked phone she refused to put away. Her code-filled screen glowed against her palm like the only honest thing in the room. She had come to report a stolen laptop. She hadn't expected the officer at the front desk to look her up and down, smirk, and laugh loud enough for everyone to hear. Yeah, right. A laptop worth that much. From a kid like you. The line sliced through her. The room stilled. Her throat locked. She felt every eye skim her skin, waiting to see whether she'd shrink or snap. The officer, Harlan Boyd, leaned closer, tapping her backpack with the end of his pen like he was checking contraband instead of property. His badge reflected her face in a warped, shrinking curve. Maya forced herself to breathe, forced her voice steady. She told him the serial number. She showed proof of purchase. He didn't look. His grin widened as though her calm confirmed some private joke. He reached for her phone. Procedure, he said. He closed his hand over it. Something in her dropped, an internal cliff giving way, and the screen blacked out between his fingers. Maya's pulse spiked. Behind the counter, a second officer lifted Maya's open laptop case from the lost and found bin, and paused. Because inside it wasn't just a laptop. It was a prototype. And the moment he lifted the lid, the room changed. Cold air blasted from the precinct vents, rattling the edges of the posters taped to the walls. Maya Reeves kept her shoulders squared, refusing to let the tremor in her chest move her hands. Her laptop had been taken from her backpack 2 hours earlier on the bus ride home. She tracked the device until it powered down. Reporting it here was her only option. Officer Harlan Boyd didn't bother hiding his amusement when she explained. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. A high-end unit like that. You sure it didn't, accidentally, land in someone else's bag? Maya's jaw tightened. It was mine. Have the receipt. I have the serial. Boyd snorted. Slow down. You sound rehearsed. She forced her breathing steady. His tone wasn't careless. It was practiced, tested, sharpened, efficient. She had seen enough encounters online to know what that voice meant. Disbelief, dismissal, danger. She held out her phone with the purchase record on screen. He didn't look. Put that down, he said. On the counter. He set it down. Carefully. His gaze lingered on her fingers a second too long. How old are you? He asked. 17. He tapped her backpack with a pen. This all yours too? Yes. You a straight-A student or something? The mockery laced every syllable. Beat of silence. Then his laugh, loud, sharp, for the room instead of her. A few civilians looked over. Maya felt her stomach contract. Boyd picked up her phone without permission. You can't, she started. Procedure. He locked the screen with his thumb. Gonna need to verify your story. Behind him, another officer lifted a case from the lost and found bin. Laptop case. Familiar fabric, familiar stitching. Maya's muscles froze, every nerve firing. The officer unzipped it. Hey, Boyd, think this belongs to her. Boyd didn't turn. Hold on. The second officer opened the lid. Maya saw the faint blue glow from the prototype interface. Her custom shell, her hardware, her work. The officer's brows drew together. This isn't a regular laptop, he said. There's a full custom neural unit in here. Boyd waved a hand dismissively. Kids these days. Stickers, mods. No, the officer said. This is serious equipment. Boyd finally turned. The moment he saw the internals, his expression shifted. Not respect, calculation. Maya felt the temperature in the room change, as if someone had shut off the vents. He walked back to her slowly. You built that? He asked. Yes. His smile flattened. And you expect me to believe that? It has my initials carved into the frame, she said. On the inside rail. The second officer looked. She's right. Boyd's jaw twitched. He held out her phone as though offering it back, then pulled it away before she could reach it. Follow me, he said. We'll verify everything in the back. Maya's pulse kicked. I haven't done anything wrong. He turned, not waiting for her. Didn't ask what you did. I said we're verifying. She looked at the other officer, the one who'd found the prototype. He didn't meet her eyes. Boyd opened the door to the hallway leading to the interview rooms. He didn't gesture politely. He didn't check if she was behind him. He just walked into the darker corridor expecting compliance. Maya stepped forward because every instinct told her stopping would be worse. The door shut behind them with a heavy clack. Mechanical, final. The lights in the hallway buzzed overhead. Boyd didn't look back as he spoke. Let's see how much of that story holds up when we're off the main floor. Maya kept her breathing even. Her laptop, her prototype, waited behind them on the counter outside. And her phone was still in his hand. The interview room was a square of stale air and flickering light. Boyd shut the door with his elbow, tossed Maya's phone onto the metal table, and let it skid to a stop inches from the wall. He didn't sit. He circled once, slow, deliberate, like he was waiting for her to make the first mistake. Maya stayed standing. The chair felt like a trap. Boyd finally spoke. Sit. She didn't move. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Sit down. She sat. He leaned on the table, palms flat. Start over. Tell me how a 17-year-old is walking around with a machine worth more than your mother's car. My mom doesn't have a car. Exactly. She kept her gaze fixed on the center of the table. I built it for a national AI competition. I'm a finalist. Boyd laughed once, short, sharp. A finalist. And I'm the governor. He flicked her phone with a fingertip. Unlock it. No. He tilted his head. You refusing a lawful order. You took it without consent. That's not procedure. He leaned in so close she could see a faint scar under his eye. I decide procedure. Her heartbeat hammered painfully. I want my phone back. Not happening. He moved to the corner of the room, crossed his arms, and assessed her like a puzzle he intended to break apart. This laptop, this prototype, what's it really for? Selling. Passing off stolen parts. You kids always think you're clever. It's my work. You got documentation. Yes. Where? On my phone. In the bag. On my email. He smirked. So everything that proves your little story is either locked, unverifiable, or imaginary. Maya swallowed hard. The serial number. Shut it. His tone cracked like a snapped cable. He walked back to the table, pulled the chair opposite her, and finally sat. His badge glinted under the fluorescent hum. Here's what I think, Boyd said. You saw something valuable in the lost and found. You took it. Now you're trying to claim it. That's the angle. Her breath caught. I reported it stolen before you found it. Convenient. She pressed her palms to her knees, grounding herself. Check the call log. He ignored that. You know what happens when juveniles lie on official reports. They get processed. Processing stays in the system. Schools see it. Programs see it. Scholarships see it. His words were too casual. Weaponized. Maya forced her voice steady. I didn't lie. Boyd tapped the table twice. Good. Then prove it. Password. Unlock the phone. She stared at the dark glass. If she unlocked it, he'd get everything. Designs, competition notes, mentor messages, system credentials. No. He laughed again, quieter this time, more dangerous. Cute. He stood, walked to the mounted camera in the corner, and reached up. Maya's pulse spiked. You can't turn that off. He didn't respond. He only adjusted the angle until it aimed higher, catching him, not her. He returned to the table, satisfied. Let's go back to that competition fantasy. You said you're a finalist. I am. Name the sponsor. She hesitated. I don't have to. Name. Sponsor. Her jaw clenched. The Horizon Youth Innovators Board. Boyd stared at her for 3 long seconds. Then he smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. Well, that's interesting, he said. Because the alert I just saw on the station feed says Horizon sent an emergency ping about an unauthorized access attempt on a registered prototype. He leaned in. Care to guess whose prototype that was? Her stomach dropped. You opened it. Don't get dramatic. If it was really yours, you should have secured it better. That's not how. Quiet. He walked back toward the door, cracked it open, and called down the hall. Lynn. In here. Footsteps approached. Quick, hesitant. Officer Lynn stepped inside, eyes darting between Maya and Boyd. He was younger, posture still uncertain around the edges of authority. Boyd held out a slip of paper. Run this number. See if the girl's story checks out. Lynn glanced at it. This the serial number. Just run it. Lynn hesitated, then left. The door closed again. Boyd turned back to Maya. See, this is what happens when big stories don't line up. They fall apart. Maya forced her voice through the dryness in her throat. You're twisting everything. He leaned over her shoulder, one hand gripping the back of her chair. He held still. You think this is twisting? I haven't even started. A faint beep sounded from the hallway. Boyd straightened. That'll be our answer. Footsteps returned, firmer this time. The door opened and Lynn stepped in, holding a printed page. He didn't hand it to Boyd immediately. He looked at Maya instead, then back at Boyd. Sir, Lynn said quietly. Her prototype. It's registered. Under her name. And she's actually a finalist. Silence cracked through the room like a dropped pane of glass. Boyd's jaw worked once. Then he snatched the paper from Lynn's hand, eyes scanning it fast, face tightening in small, involuntary spasms. Lynn stepped back toward the door. Sir, instructions. Boyd didn't look up. He only said one word, low and tight. Leave. Lynn stepped out, closing the door behind him. Boyd lowered the paper. His eyes met Maya's, calculating, exposed, dangerous. He lifted her phone from the table and rolled it once between his fingers. Looks like your story got a little more interesting, he said. Then he clicked the lock button. The screen lit up with his reflection and hers, warped together in the glass. Let's see how far this goes. The moment Boyd stepped out of the interview room, Maya's lungs finally drew a full breath, but it scraped like sandpaper on the way in. The door closed behind him with a muted thud. The hum of the overhead light filled the silence. Steady, mechanical, indifferent. Maya kept her hands folded in her lap because if she didn't, they would shake. Beyond the wall, muffled voices rose. Boyd's steady baritone, Lynn's softer responses, and another voice she didn't recognize. None of the words were clear, but the tone was agitation wrapped in forced calm. The camera in the corner blinked its tiny red light, angled upward and useless. She leaned forward just enough to see her phone on the table. It sat there like a lifeline just out of reach. Silent. Aching. Her prototype was somewhere outside this room. Handled by people who didn't understand it, didn't respect it, didn't believe she could have built it. The thought made something tighten behind her ribs. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Officer Lynn slipped inside, closing it softly behind him. He wasn't supposed to be here. That much was obvious from the way he kept glancing at the door as though expecting Boyd to materialize from the air. He stayed near the wall. I don't have long. Maya straightened. Am I being charged? No. Detained. He hesitated. Not officially. Her stomach dropped. What does that mean? Lynn rubbed a hand over the back of his neck. It means Boyd's trying to figure out how to explain what he already did without making himself look guilty. Maya's pulse kicked. What he did was illegal. Lynn lowered his voice. Yes. And it'll get worse if he panics. She swallowed. What's happening with my prototype? It triggered an automatic log when someone tried to access the root directory. That alert went out to Horizon. They called the station. That's why Boyd left the room earlier. He's talking to the shift supervisor now. Maya felt her breath stutter. So they know it was opened here. Yes. Lynn stepped closer, still careful not to get too near. Listen. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but the registration on your prototype, your finalist status, everything checks out. When I pulled up your file, the system cross-referenced your ID. Your mentor's listed. The competition credentials are real. Then why am I still here? He looked away. Because Boyd doesn't want to admit he was wrong. Maya's hands clenched in her lap. He took my phone without consent. He adjusted the camera. He tried to. I know, Lynn whispered. I saw some of it. Then stop him. I'm a rookie, he said, voice tight. He's been here 16 years. The words landed without comfort. Maya stared at her phone. What's he doing now? Lynn exhaled. Trying to access your device. He asked tech support to override the lock, but they refused without a warrant. A cold, electric dread crawled down her spine. What about my laptop? Where is it? On Boyd's desk. Lynn paused. You need to understand something. The moment that alert went out, the station's internal log flagged it. That means another department is already watching the situation. Boyd doesn't know that yet. But he will. Maya's voice dropped. He can't touch my code. The system has failsafes. If he tries to force anything. I know. Lynn looked uneasy. I think he's trying anyway. She felt the air around her tighten. If he triggers the failsafe, it'll send a secondary alert. It wipes most directories. It locks the hardware. And it sends a full tamper log to my mentor. Lynn blinked. You built that in. Yes. He let out a slow breath, almost a laugh of disbelief. You're 17. I'm tired of people saying that like it makes me less capable. Beat past. Lynn's expression shifted. Something like respect, thin but visible. All right. The door suddenly shook. One firm knock. Lynn flinched. That's him. He moved back to the wall fast. Boyd entered, shutting the door behind him with sharper force than necessary. His eyes flicked from Lynn to Maya, assessing the room like he'd walked into a scene he needed to regain control of. Lynn, he said. Out. Yes, sir. Lynn exited without another word, but not before one brief glance at Maya. A silent warning or reassurance she couldn't tell. Boyd sat in the chair across from her. He placed her phone on the table between them with the screen facing up. The glass reflected the overhead light, and the tension coiling in his jaw. You didn't tell me your little project was monitored, he said. Maya kept her gaze steady. You didn't ask. His eyes narrowed. You know what happens when law enforcement sees unexplained security alerts tied to a suspect's device? I'm not a suspect. He ignored that. They assume you're hiding something. What I'm hiding, Maya said, is my work from unauthorized access. Boyd leaned back, arms crossed. I got your mentor on the line earlier. He didn't seem too pleased. She stiffened. You called him. I had to verify identity. That's procedure. You can't just. I can do a lot of things you don't understand. Her voice stayed low. You accessed my prototype without a warrant. That device was in police custody. It was stolen property. Not abandoned. He smirked. Don't lecture me about definitions. She felt the heat in her cheeks rise. Not anger, but a dangerous mix of fear and clarity. You understand, Boyd said, that this doesn't look good for you. A miner running encryption-heavy hardware, locked devices, alerts pinging tech boards. You triggered the alert. So you claim. The door opened again. Boyd snapped his head toward it. Lynn stood there, breath short, holding a tablet. "Sir," he said, "there's another alert." Boyd's eyes hardened. "What alert?" Lynn swallowed. "Tamper log. Full diagnostic. It went out to Horizon. And to the precinct's internal oversight channel." Maya closed her eyes briefly. The failsafe had activated. Boyd stood slowly, like a wire pulled taut. "Get out," he told Lynn. But Lynn didn't move. "Sir," he said, voice firmer, "Internal Affairs is requesting all device handling documentation. Immediately." Silence punched the room flat. Boyd's gaze shifted to Maya, something raw and furious behind his stare. "This isn't over," he said. Maya didn't look away, because she knew he was right. And the worst part was still coming. The hallway outside the interview room churned with low voices and hurried footsteps. Someone's radio hissed. A door slammed. A printer somewhere down the corridor spat out pages in sharp bursts. The station felt different, tightened, electric, as if the air itself was bracing for collision. Boyd didn't speak for a long time. He stood in the center of the room, shoulders squared, jaw grinding, the printed tamper log trembling slightly in his hand. His silence was its own kind of threat. Maya held still, back straight, breathing measured. Finally he set the paper down. "Maya," he said, voice even. "Let's walk." She didn't move. "Am I free to leave?" "That's what we're determining." He opened the door. Lynn stood outside with another officer, a woman Maya hadn't seen before. She wore a badge clipped to a plain black blazer, no uniform. Her gaze swept the room once, assessing the angles, the camera, the placement of the chair. "Officer Boyd," the woman said. "Detective Morales. Internal Affairs." Boyd stiffened. "You didn't need to come down here. A log firing doesn't justify." "It does when the alert pings our department directly," Morales said. "And when the timestamps indicate access outside of protocol. We need to walk through your handling process." Boyd's voice tightened. "I was verifying ownership." Morales looked at the disabled camera angle. "Is it standard procedure to adjust the recording device during juvenile questioning?" Lynn went still. Boyd didn't answer. Morales turned to Maya. "Miss Jackson, can you confirm whether the device in question belongs to you?" "Yes." "Do you consent to officers accessing it today?" "No." Morales nodded once, as if that single word closed an invisible loop. "Understood. We'll need to isolate all hardware until the review is complete." Boyd took one step forward. "Detective, this is unnecessary." Morales didn't turn toward him. "Officer Lynn, escort Miss Jackson to the public waiting area and remain with her." Lynn nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." Maya rose, grabbing her backpack. Before she stepped out, Boyd spoke. "Don't get comfortable," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room. Lynn placed a hand near Maya's elbow, not touching, just guiding her out. They walked down the hallway in silence. The hum of overhead lights followed them like a shadow. When they reached the waiting area, Lynn gestured toward a chair near the wall. "You can sit here." Maya lowered herself carefully. Her legs still felt like they were standing inside the interview room. Lynn sat one seat away. "I won't let him near your devices now." "He'll try anyway." Lynn didn't deny it. A few minutes passed. Officers moved through the room with hurried, clipped strides. No one looked at her for long. Then the door near the far desk swung open. Detective Morales stepped out, holding a sealed evidence bag. Inside was Maya's prototype. Screen dark, ports locked, casing intact. She walked straight to the desk. "Sergeant, log this under IA hold. No access without my direct authorization." The sergeant nodded, already opening a binder. Boyd didn't appear. Maya tried to steady her breathing. One hurdle down. Too many left. Morales approached her. "Miss Jackson, I'm going to need a brief statement." Maya nodded. Morales crouched so they were eye level. "Tell me only what happened today. Not guesses. Not predictions. Just the sequence. Maya's throat tightened, but she spoke clearly. Officer Boyd found my prototype at the bus stop. I reported it stolen before that. He accused me of lying, took my phone without consent, and tried to access both devices. He changed the camera angle in the interview room. Morales' expression didn't shift. Not approval, not sympathy, just attention. Did he threaten you? Yes. Did you feel unsafe? Yes. Morales stood. That's enough. Lynn watched her walk back toward the secure hallway. The door closed behind her. Maya pressed her palms together to hide the residual tremor. Lynn leaned slightly toward her. Listen. Gaze on him now. That means procedure, paperwork, oversight. He can't touch your stuff. But he still works here. For now. A shadow moved at the far end of the room. Oi. His face was blank. No anger, no smirk, no swagger. Something colder. He walked toward the lobby slowly, hands at his sides, eyes fixed forward as if refusing to acknowledge anyone in the room. Morales followed him, speaking in low tones. He didn't look at her either. They disappeared around the corner. Maya exhaled carefully. Lynn stood. Your mom's on the way. I called her after the ID verification cleared. Maya nodded. Thank you. He glanced at the hallway Boyd had vanished into. This place. It's slower to change than people think. Maya didn't respond. Because she was already replaying every moment of the day in her mind. Cataloging it, indexing it, storing it like another dataset. Not for revenge. For survival. For accuracy. Her mother arrived 10 minutes later. Breathless, worried, furious under the surface. She wrapped an arm around Maya immediately, grounding her with the familiar scent of lavender laundry soap. Are you all right? Her mother asked softly. Yes. But the truth was heavier. Morales returned. Miss Jackson, you're free to go for now. A will need follow-up statements soon. Keep your phone close. And don't discuss details with anyone outside your household. Maya nodded. They walked toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open. Cold air hit her face. But just as she crossed the threshold, her phone buzzed in her pocket. Short, clipped, metallic. She pulled it out. Unknown number. We need to talk. Horizon. Urgent. Another buzz. Second message. This isn't about the competition. It's about the officer. Something's been flagged. Third message. Call immediately. Before he does. The event hall dimmed as the keynote transition began. The officer patrolled the perimeter with rigid posture, scanning the crowd for validation. He noticed the black CEO reviewing documents near the backstage corridor. He assumed she was trespassing. He stepped in front of her without hesitation, blocking her path. Authorized personnel only, he said, voice flat but visibly charged with presumption. She handed him her access badge. He didn't read it. He pushed it back toward her chest with 2 fingers and announced that any vendor without clearance should wait for instructions. She removed the badge again, held it steady, and told him she needed entry for final sponsor review. He repeated the accusation, louder this time, treating her statement as defiance. A stage manager approached, stressed and rushed. The officer intercepted him and declared that she was interfering with event preparation. The manager, under pressure and unaware of who she was, accepted the officer's framing and told her to move aside. She stepped back, not out of submission but calculation. She watched both men act on assumption rather than verification. A junior coordinator arrived with the updated sponsor dossier. She handed it directly to the CEO, addressing her with formal respect. The officer observed the exchange and frowned, but dismissed it as a clerical mix-up. The coordinator, recognizing the CEO's expression, quietly asked whether the officer had obstructed her access. The CEO confirmed with a single nod. The coordinator went rigid. She understood the hierarchy. She went to inform the operations director. The CEO followed at a measured pace, allowing the system to reveal its internal habits without her intervention. The officer trailed behind, still convinced he was preventing a disturbance. Inside the operations room, the director reviewed the sponsor portfolio, saw the CEO's name at the top and froze. The coordinator explained the obstruction. The director's posture collapsed into immediate alarm. He asked the CEO if she required corrective action. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her silence forced him to confront the reality he had enabled. The officer waited near the door, still unaware that the room's tension centered on his behavior. This chapter concludes when the director realizes the event's primary benefactor has witnessed systemic bias operating without friction. The director ordered every staff member except the CEO and the coordinator out of the operations room. The officer hesitated, assuming the command wasn't meant for him. The director repeated the order, sharper. The officer stepped out, confused but still anchored to his self-constructed authority. The director faced the CEO with controlled panic. He tried to deliver an apology, but she cut through it by placing the sponsor contract on the table. The contract displayed her corporation's name and the funding percentage that underwrote the event's infrastructure. The director understood that his role, the staff hierarchy, and the officer's authority all existed because her company enabled the event itself. She didn't recount the incident. She didn't negotiate. She pointed to the officer's name on the security roster and slid the page back to the director. The meaning was explicit. She wanted the system to correct itself without her performing the labor of justification. The director summoned the security chief. The chief entered with rigid composure. The director handed him the roster, pointed at the officer's name, and stated that a breach of protocol had compromised relations with the event's primary sponsor. The chief didn't request details. He understood that any incident severe enough to prompt a closed-door directive at sponsor level required immediate removal. The officer was called back in. He expected commendation for handling a disturbance. Instead, the chief informed him that he was being relieved of duty pending investigation. The officer's face tightened, disbelief overriding discipline. He attempted to defend himself by claiming he stopped an unauthorized vendor. The director corrected him with one sentence. "She is the sponsor." The officer's expression collapsed into a sequence of realizations, each one dismantling the confidence that had fueled his earlier conduct. He tried to speak again, but the chief ordered him to surrender his badge and exit the premises. The officer complied under silent protest, still processing the reversal of power. The CEO watched without reaction. She allowed the system's internal mechanisms to expose their priorities. The director waited for further instruction, but she provided none. Her non-response forced them to recognize that repairing the damage required action, not appeasement. The chapter ends when the officer steps out of the event hall, stripped of authority, while the staff realizes the sponsor they dismissed held structural control from the start. The officer's departure left a dense, trembling silence across the event hall. Conversations that had once floated freely now clung to corners, hushed and wary. People who had watched the confrontation earlier, some with discomfort, some with amusement, now avoided eye contact with the black teen who stood near the main demo table, hands still clenched from the confrontation hours ago. A small group of tech representatives from other booths whispered near the back. "Wait, she's the sponsor," one man murmured. Another nodded. "Not just the sponsor. She designed half the AI infrastructure they're showcasing tonight." Someone exhaled sharply. And that officer talked to her like she didn't even belong here. In the center of the room, the teen, Amara, stood beside her equipment crate, quietly tightening cables on her prototype. Her shoulders rose and fell with slow breaths as she tried to shut the world out. She had faced countless microaggressions at competitions, labs, and tech fairs, but this incident had burrowed deeper. The officer hadn't just humiliated her. He'd dismissed her existence with laughter. And the room had watched. Her mentor, Dr. Ellis, approached cautiously. "You don't need to stay, Amara. We can pack up and leave." She shook her head. "No. If I leave now, he still wins. Dr. Ellis nodded, understanding the reflex of resistance she had developed over years. Then stand tall. Your work deserves the room's full attention, even if the room doesn't deserve you. As they prepared for her scheduled presentation, the event's coordinator hurried over, posture stiff with forced professionalism. Miss Bennett, she began, nervous. We sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. Amara didn't look up. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was disrespect. The coordinator froze. The clarity of that statement, delivered so calmly, left no space for spin. Why yes, of course. She cleared her throat. We're moving your presentation to the main stage. Prime slot. The director personally requested it. I didn't ask for that, Amara replied. I know, the coordinator said. That's why he insisted. When the coordinator left, Dr. Ellis whispered, You didn't have to hold back like that. She wasn't apologizing, Amara said quietly. She was managing optics. As the event lights dimmed for the next showcase, whispers turned into pointed glances. Reporters who had ignored Amara earlier now drifted closer, sensing a story. Some were driven by curiosity, others by guilt. Then came the shift. A young intern, a white girl barely a year older than Amara, approached hesitantly. I saw everything, she whispered. I should have stepped in. I'm sorry I didn't. Amara met her eyes. It was the first genuine expression of remorse she'd seen all night. Thank you, Amara said softly. That means something. The intern nodded, relieved, then returned to her station. The smallest crack in the room's indifference. Minutes later, the director himself arrived, hands clasped behind his back. Miss Bennett, he said with effort, we would be honored if you opened the final innovation showcase tonight. Amara studied his expression. Not pride. Not generosity. Obligation. You're trying to rewrite what happened, she said. He flinched. We're trying to make it right. Then start by being honest about why it was wrong. The director swallowed, unable to answer. Amara turned back to her device, signaling the conversation was over. As the house lights dimmed again and the crowd shifted toward the main stage, one thing became unmistakably clear. The room that once ignored her now revolved around her. Not out of respect, but because the truth had broken their illusion of control. The chapter closes with Amara stepping toward the stage entrance, eyes forward, jaw set, ready to demonstrate the brilliance they tried to bury. The stage crew signaled her forward. Bright white spotlights carved a path across the floor, illuminating Amara as she carried her compact AI array toward the center of the platform. The audience settled, the air thick with anticipation and unease. The officers' earlier laughter still echoed through the collective memory of the room, staining every breath. Amara adjusted her headset mic. Her pulse drummed against her ribs, steady, disciplined. She had rehearsed this presentation for months, but tonight carried a weight she had never prepared for. Not the pressure of performance, the pressure of being watched differently. Dr. Ellis stood at the wings, arms crossed, gaze protective. The director gave a discreet nod from the front row. Not supportive. Strategic. Amara began. This system, she said, her voice amplified and clear, is designed to detect procedural inconsistencies in law enforcement body cam footage in real time. People leaned forward. Journalists gripped their tablets. She tapped a command on her wrist controller. A holographic reconstruction appeared behind her. Police encounters rendered in blue-tinted overlays. She walked the audience through anomaly detection, bias mapping, decision tree breakdowns. Her tone stayed level, objective, factual. Then she paused. Her hands tightened around the controller. And bias, she said, is not an accident. It's a pattern. A ripple went through the crowd. Amara activated the final module. The screen behind her flickered, then displayed anonymized, redacted body cam clips. Timelines. Behavior analysis overlays. Silent but damning. The tech convention murmured with a mixture of fascination and discomfort. Then the footage shifted again, to an AI reconstruction of her own incident from earlier that night. Not the officer himself, but the posture, the gestures, the aggression, the dismissiveness. Rendered as a faceless model. No badge number, no identity. Just patterns. Bias patterns. The room froze. The director stiffened. Dr. Ellis straightened. A low hum built through the audience. Someone whispered, "She's showing him without showing him." Another said, "She just proved her own experience through her own tech." Reporters lifted cameras. Amara held her ground. "This model doesn't punish," she said. "It reveals." A journalist raised a hand instinctively, but Amara continued before he could speak. "It reveals what people deny, what people justify, what people claim they don't remember saying. But the data remembers." The murmurs turned sharp, electric. Amara ended the simulation. The screen fell to black. She stepped back from the mic. Silence. Then a single voice cut through it, firm, female. "She just changed the whole conversation." A wave of applause followed, hesitant at first, then growing into something undeniable. Not all of it was admiration. Some was fear. Some was guilt. Some was opportunism. But the applause was real. The director leaned toward his coordinator. "Push this to the press packet immediately." The coordinator whispered back, "This will overshadow the entire conference." "That's the point," he said. Dr. Ellis moved to the edge of the stage. Pride softened his stern features. Amara bowed her head slightly to the audience, then powered down her device. As she stepped off the stage, the applause continued, loud, echoing, almost ceremonial. But beneath the noise, she heard the truth. They weren't applauding her genius. They were applauding the chance to distance themselves from the officer's behavior. As she walked into the hallway behind the stage, her voice low enough only for Dr. Ellis to hear, she said, "They're clapping for their own comfort." He nodded. "They always do." She adjusted the strap of her equipment case. This wasn't justice. This was the beginning. The next morning, the press coverage hit like a pulse through every network covering the event. Headlines ran, "Teen tech prodigy exposes structural bias through AI." Sponsor CEO rewrites power dynamics in real time. Officer suspended following incident at tech gala. The officer's name appeared in small type, barely legible among the celebration of the technology. Amara scrolled through the feeds quietly from her apartment. Her hands rested on the keyboard, but she didn't type. She saw the clips of the presentation, the AI reconstruction of microaggressions, the commentary dissecting procedural failures. Social media buzzed with admiration and quiet outrage. Her mentor, Dr. Ellis, stood behind her. "It's out. The system knows what happened. Legal review, internal affairs, all of it. It's documented." Amara's eyes didn't leave the screen. "It's not enough," she said. "He humiliated me. The station. The bystanders. All of it. And people are clapping at a screen." Ellis nodded. "Poetic justice isn't comfort. It's consequence. He's facing investigation. Suspension is the start. Exposure is the follow-through. And you control the record. Your tech is immutable. Your narrative is yours." A notification pinged. Horizon Youth Innovators Board. Message. "Your final review has been approved. Full funding secured. Congratulations. Prepare to present your full prototype at the National Showcase." Amara exhaled. A tight knot of tension unraveled slightly, but her jaw remained firm. She had one recognition. She had proven her work's value. Yet the psychological toll lingered. Trust in authority eroded. Nerves raw, patience for indifference vanished. Ellis placed a hand on her shoulder. "You carry the cost, yes. But it ensures accountability. That's the lesson the system needed." She nodded slowly. Her eyes lingered on the officer's image in a minor corner of a news article. His expression was tight, defensive, humiliated but calculated. He still existed within the system, still capable of action, but the architecture had shifted beneath him. Her phone buzzed again. Another alert. A new update from her AI system. Anomaly detection on unrelated data streams. She smiled faintly. Vigilance was now second nature. Amara packed her laptop and peripherals. Every cable, every module, every line of code was her armor. She stepped into the street. Morning sunlight reflected off the glass towers of the city. Crowds moved past, unaware of the battle she had just fought. Yet she walked forward, eyes clear, shoulders square. She had wielded her intellect against institutional inertia, transformed vulnerability into leverage, and imposed consequence where impunity once ruled. The officer's downfall was only a single variable in a larger, unrelenting system she now had power to monitor. The chapter and story ends with her stepping into the bright day. Poetic justice had landed. Emotional cost remained. Resilience, clarity, and strategic foresight defined the aftermath.